Welcome to HornAfrica Insight, your source for East Africa news. Today's 5 stories. Egypt signs port development deals with Eritrea and Djibouti, raising questions about strategic pressure on Ethiopia. The UN Security Council extends the African Union mission in Somalia for another year. The Red Sea Afar Democratic Organization welcomes a landmark human rights ruling against Eritrea. Sudan warns of an alleged RSF training base in Ethiopia, while the RSF rejects a new peace proposal. And Mogadishu holds its first direct municipal elections in 57 years. Let's get to the facts. Egypt has quietly signed agreements to develop seaports in Eritrea and Djibouti, moves that sources in Cairo say are part of efforts to increase strategic pressure on Ethiopia over the ongoing Nile water dispute. According to reports, Egypt will upgrade Assab port in Eritrea and Doraleh port in Djibouti, increasing their capacity and creating berths capable of accommodating warships. The agreements also allow Egypt to post small military contingents at both locations. Both ports are strategically positioned near the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, one of the world's most important maritime choke points connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. The significance of these deals becomes clear when you consider Ethiopia's geography. The country has been landlocked since Eritrea's independence in 1993 and relies heavily on Djibouti's Doraleh port for approximately 95% of its trade. By positioning itself at the very ports Ethiopia depends on, Egypt is sending a clear geopolitical message. Egypt has long opposed efforts by landlocked nations, particularly Ethiopia, to gain direct Red Sea access. When Ethiopia signed a memorandum of understanding with Somaliland in early 2024 for potential port access, Egypt was among the most vocal critics. The agreements with Eritrea were reportedly signed during President Isaias Afwerki's October visit to Cairo. The Djibouti deal was finalized by senior officials from both countries. Egypt is bound to both Eritrea and Djibouti by strong political and military ties, making these partnerships natural extensions of existing relationships. The infrastructure being built is not merely commercial. Egypt will construct facilities for warship refueling and resupply, including berths capable of handling destroyers, submarines, and potentially aircraft carriers. The Djibouti deal also includes road upgrades leading to Doraleh port, improving logistics and access. Egypt itself has over 2,000 kilometers of Red Sea coastline and controls the Suez Canal, giving it enormous strategic leverage in regional maritime affairs. But these new port deals extend Cairo's reach southward, directly into the Horn of Africa. The backdrop to all of this is the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The dispute over the Renaissance Dam has dragged on for more than a decade. Egypt views the dam as an existential threat to its water security, relying on the Nile for 97% of its fresh water. Ethiopia sees the dam as vital for economic development and power generation. Sudan's position has been mixed, concerned about both water supply and flood control. Despite countless rounds of talks, no binding agreement has been reached. Can these port deals shift the balance of power in the Nile dispute? They certainly add a new dimension, turning what has been primarily a diplomatic and water management conflict into a broader strategic competition with military undertones. Whether this pressure translates into concessions from Ethiopia remains to be seen. The United Nations Security Council voted Tuesday to extend the African Union support and stabilization mission in Somalia for another year, through the end of 2026. The mission, known as AWSOM, plays a critical role in helping Somali government forces combat the militant group al-Shabab. The UK's UN ambassador emphasized that Somalia has made enormous progress since the African Union mission in Somalia, or AMISOM, was first deployed in 2007. However, she stressed that decision-making must be rooted in understanding Somalia's national context and the challenges that remain. China's representative raised concerns about the mission's funding gap, calling it unsustainable. He urged international donors to honor their financial commitments and alleviate the strain on mission resources. The ambassador emphasized that AWSOM needs adequate funding not just for security operations, but also for rebuilding Somalia's energy infrastructure and supporting governance capacity. The mission's mandate focuses on degrading al-Shabaab's military capabilities and supporting the Somali National Army as it works toward taking full responsibility for the country's security. Al-Shabab, an al-Qaeda-linked militant group, has been battling the Somali government for nearly 2 decades. While AU and Somali forces have driven the group from major cities like Mogadishu, Kismayo, and Baidoa, al-Shabab still controls significant rural areas and has even recaptured some zones in recent years. The group continues to launch regular attacks, including suicide bombings, assassinations, and raids on military bases. AU operations have claimed significant successes. Over 50 militants were reportedly killed in an August operation in Barriere. But the fight is far from over. The extension of AWASM's mandate signals continued international commitment to Somalia's stabilization. But without adequate funding and a clear timeline for transitioning full security responsibility to Somali forces, questions remain about how long international troops will be needed and whether Somalia can sustain security gains on its own. Can this extension strengthen the fight against al-Shabab? It depends on whether the funding gaps are addressed and whether the Somali government can accelerate its own capacity-building efforts. The Red Sea Afar Democratic Organization has welcomed a decision by the African Commission on human and people's rights, finding violations against the Red Sea Afar community in Eritrea's Donkalia region. ARSADO chairperson Ibrahim Haroun called the ruling a historic breakthrough in what he described as a decades-long struggle for justice. The commission has ordered the Eritrean government to respond within 60 days to the findings. Haroun said the message from the commission is clear. No state is above the African Charter on human and people's rights, and no regime can evade scrutiny for abuses. He highlighted patterns of repression against the Red Sea Afar, including mass displacement, persecution, enforced disappearances, killings, and systematic land dispossession along the Red Sea coast. The Red Sea Afar are an ethnic group inhabiting coastal areas of Eritrea and Djibouti, as well as parts of Ethiopia. In Eritrea, they have long complained of marginalization and discrimination by the central government. The RSADO has been advocating for Afar rights and autonomy within Eritrea, though the Eritrean government has labeled the organization as a hostile entity. The African Commission's ruling affirms that the alleged abuses cannot be ignored. It represents a rare instance of an international human rights body directly addressing Eritrea's domestic conduct. However, Eritrea has historically rejected international criticism and is unlikely to comply voluntarily with the Commission's order. The Commission's decisions are not legally binding in the same way as court rulings, but they carry significant moral and political weight within the African Union system. Whether Eritrea will respond within the 60-day deadline or at all remains uncertain. Can this ruling bring accountability? It depends on whether the African Union and its member states are willing to apply pressure on Asmara to comply. For the Red Sea Afar community, the decision offers recognition of their suffering, even if tangible justice remains elusive. Sudan has raised serious concerns over reports of a Rapid Support Forces training base allegedly operating in Ethiopia's Benishangul Gumuz region near the Sudanese border. Sources confirmed long-standing rumors, and Al Jazeera cited Sudanese government claims that the base is being supplied with vehicles, artillery, and jamming equipment. Khartoum alleges that up to 10,000 RSF fighters are stationed at a camp near Menge, close to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The location raises significant concerns in Khartoum. If accurate, it would mean RSF forces are positioned dangerously close to the border, potentially enabling reprisal attacks or new supply channels into Sudan. The area is also near the Ethiopian Grand Renaissance Dam, adding a layer of strategic sensitivity. No satellite imagery has yet confirmed the base's existence, and some reports suggest the area has been cleared. Ethiopia has not responded to the allegations. However, mutual suspicions of rebel support have long strained Ethiopia-Sudan relations. Ethiopia is seen as close to the United Arab Emirates, which Sudan accuses of backing the RSF. Sudan fears that a new RSF supply route could emerge, especially after the fall of El Fasher brought the front line closer to the Ethiopian border. The region is also a stronghold of the SPLM North faction, led by Abdelaziz al-Hilu, an RSF ally. Sudan has previously accused Ethiopia of supporting rebel groups and recruiting fighters from Berta and Beja communities along the border. Khartoum's message to Addis Ababa is clear: do not intervene in Sudan's civil war. Recent visits by Ethiopian officials to Port Sudan have included warnings from Sudan about Tigray forces and demands for Ethiopian neutrality regarding Eritrea. Asmara has been backing Sudan's army in the civil war and is suspected of arming Fano rebels in Ethiopia's Amhara region, further complicating regional dynamics. Meanwhile, the RSF has rejected a peace initiative proposed by Sudan's Prime Minister Kamil Idris to the UN Security Council. In a statement, the RSF called the proposal a rehash of military rhetoric that ignores battlefield realities. The group criticized demands for RSF withdrawal and disarmament as unrealistic and accused the Port Sudan government of lacking logic and evading its obligations. The rejection underscores the deeply entrenched positions on both sides of Sudan's civil war. The Sudanese armed forces and the RSF remain locked in a brutal conflict that has displaced over 12 million people and pushed half the country toward famine. Can these warnings and rejections prevent further escalation? That depends on whether regional actors, including Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the UAE, can be persuaded to stop fueling the conflict and whether any credible mediation can bring the warring parties to the table. Mogadishu residents went to the polls in a historic municipal election, the first direct local vote in the capital since 1969. The election represents a significant step towards Somalia's broader goal of holding nationwide direct elections. Over 1,600 candidates competed for 390 council seats across Mogadishu's districts. Nearly 400,000 voters were registered to participate. Deputy Prime Minister Salah Ahmed Jama described the vote as the restoration of a constitutional right that had been denied for half a century. A member of Somalia's National Independent Electoral Commission, Abdishakur Abib Hayir, said the election demonstrates Somalia's progress and resilience. He expressed hope that after successful local elections, the country could move toward nationwide direct voting. Somalia has not held a direct national election since 1969, the year before Siad Barre's military coup. The 1991 collapse of Barre's regime plunged the country into civil war. And since 2004, Somalia has relied on an indirect electoral system designed to build consensus among clans while managing ongoing insurgency threats. Security in Mogadishu has improved significantly in recent years. Al-Shabab has been driven from the capital and other major cities. However, the group continues to launch attacks, including suicide bombings and assassinations targeting government officials and civilians. Al-Shabab still controls large rural areas and has recaptured some zones from government forces. Despite these challenges, Thursday's vote proceeded relatively peacefully. The fact that it happened at all is a testament to Somalia's incremental progress towards stability and democratic governance. Can this vote advance Somalia's democratic transition? If the municipal elections are seen as credible and lead to effective local governance, they could build public confidence in direct voting. That, in turn, could pave the way for parliamentary and presidential elections based on one person, one vote. A goal Somalia has pursued for years but has yet to achieve. For now, Mogadishu's voters have taken a historic step. Whether the rest of Somalia follows remains to be seen. From Egypt's strategic port deals with Eritrea and Djibouti to the extension of the AU mission in Somalia, a landmark human rights ruling on Eritrea, tensions over alleged RSF bases in Ethiopia, and Mogadishu's historic municipal vote, the Horn of Africa continues to navigate complex challenges and pursue progress. If you found this episode informative, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on X for daily updates. This has been Horn Africa Insight. Stay informed.